Peninsula. Prior to World War II, the Japanese had colonized the Korean Peninsula. In the final days of World War II, the Soviet Union accepted the surrender of the Japanese north of the 38th parallel, while the United States accepted the surrender in the south. The 38th parallel was never meant to be a political boundary, nor a division of country. It was merely established to designate areas of responsibility. So in May of 1948, elections were held in the south. This man, Dr. Seung-man Rhee, was elected the first president of the Republic of Korea. In September of that same year, the Soviet Union appointed Kim Il-sung to be the first premier of Communist North Korea. He would reign for approximately 46 years until his death in 1994. He was succeeded in power by his eldest son, Kim Jong-il. This was the first father-son succession of power to ever take place in a communist country. Despite negotiations and attempts to reunify the peninsula, on the 25th of June, 1950, North Korea launched a massive surprise invasion. This ensuing war would last for over 3 years and cost over 2 million people their lives. Within 1 month, North Korean forces had captured most of the Korean Peninsula. Coalition forces finally stopped the North Korean army's advance near the city of Pusan. Over the next 4 months, the United Nations Command conducted the Incheon landing and pushed the North Korean forces back to the Yalu River, or the border between North Korea and China, at which point the Chinese entered the war to aid North Korea in their war effort. The war began to stabilize around the 38th parallel. Although a permanent settlement has not yet been reached, on the 27th of July, 1953, military commanders from the United Nations Command, Korean People's Army, and Chinese People's Volunteers signed an armistice or ceasefire to end the fighting. This agreement is still in effect today, and the border between North and South Korea has remained the same ever since. This white dotted line represents the MDL, or Military Demarcation Line. Under provisions of the armistice, all military commanders were ordered to pull their troops back 2,000 meters from the last point of hostile contact, thus creating a 4,000 meter wide, 241 kilometer long Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ. Note the location of Seoul and its relationship to the Joint Security Area. We are currently right here at Camp Bonifas, located just 2.4 kilometers south from the MDL and just 400 meters south of the southern boundary of the Demilitarized Zone. This is the city of Kaesong. It was the original site of the armistice talks prior to being moved to the Panmunjeom, or what we call the Joint Security Area. Although the DMZ has become one of the most militarized locations in the entire world, the actual MDL consists of no fortifications. It is simply a series of 1,292 yellow and black marker panels that span from coast to coast. On the southern side, they are labeled in Korean or Hangul at the top and English at the bottom, while on the northern side, they are labeled in Korean at the top and Chinese or Mandarin at the bottom. The MDL is more clearly defined throughout the Joint Security Area by a series of white marker stakes. These white marker stakes stand approximately 1 meter in height and are spaced at 10 meters apart. The MDL is also extended through Conference Row by this 17 by 5 inch slab of concrete. This is the area we'll be visiting today. Notice how the MDL winds its way through the Demilitarized Zone and forms a finger inside the Joint Security Area. Upon our arrival here today, we will be surrounded by North Korea on 3 sides. We will start our tour here at Camp Bonifas, exit onto MSR 1 or Old Highway 1. For over 50 years, this was the only stretch of highway that linked the two countries. Here are a few things I'll point out to you on our trip north today. Guard Post 240, Observation Post Olet, Taesongdong or Freedom Village, Gyeongdong or Propaganda Village, and the Swiss and Swedish Neutral Nations Supervisory Commission camp. I will now highlight a few of these areas in more detail. First is the village of Taesongdong or Freedom Village. The United Nations Command is responsible for implementing civil affairs and security within this unique village. We do so by a security company that guards the village 24 hours a day. During the day, they guard the fields while the farmers work in them. At night, they guard the village itself while the residents sleep. All the residents of Taesongdong live in large homes and have rather large allocations of farmland. However, they do live under some rather severe restrictions. They must be inside the village by nightfall, and they must be inside their homes with the doors and windows locked by midnight. 1,800 meters across the military demarcation line is the village of Gyeongdong, or Propaganda Village. We gave it its name due to a rather large speaker system that was located throughout the area that until July of 2004 would broadcast propaganda 6 to 12 hours a day. This propaganda could be heard here on Camp Bonifas, but mainly at night. It would idolize Kim Jong-il to be a great leader and invited the citizens of Taesongdong, as well as the rest of the Republic, to defect to this so-called Village of Paradise. However, if one were to defect here, they would find themselves rather lonely, for this village is mostly uninhabited. We do see people here from time to time that work at the Kaesong Industrial Complex, maintain the upkeep of these buildings, and raise and lower this extremely large North Korean flag. That's one of the largest flags in the world and has a length of over 31 meters. This is the second of 2 flagpoles to ever stand in the village of Gyeongdong. In 1981, the Republic of Korea donated a flagpole to the village of Taesongdong that stood taller than the original flagpole in Gyeongdong. The North Koreans quickly responded by building an even taller flagpole. Today, the flagpole in the village of Taesongdong stands at 100 meters in height. while the flagpole in the village of Gyeongdong stands at over 160 meters in height. As we enter the joint security area, we'll see the road that leads to the Neutral Nations Supervisory Commission camp. Delegates from Switzerland, Sweden, Poland, and Czechoslovakia originally formed the commission, and they were charged with the investigation of all armistice violations that occurred outside of the DMZ. They currently work with 3 delegations. The Swiss and the Swedish stay year-round, while the Polish attend biannual meetings. On your right is the former Czech and Polish Neutral Nations Supervisory Commission camp. On your left is the North Korean People's Peace Museum. This building was constructed in less than 48 hours for the sole purpose of signing the armistice. It's also ironically called a peace museum because it houses 2 of the axes that were used in the 1976 axe murders. Right here is the Bridge of No Return. The Bridge of No Return obtained its name near the end of the Korean War when Operation Big Switch and Operation Little Switch took place. The United Nations Command returned over 82,000 prisoners of war, while the KPA returned only 13,000. Prisoners were lined up on either side of the bridge and given the opportunity to cross into the country of their choice. However, once they crossed the bridge, they could never return, hence the name. The Bridge of No Return lies on the southern boundary of the joint security area. All the blue buildings that you can see belong to the United Nations Command, while all the red buildings belong to the KPA. Up until 1976, this was considered a neutral location, and both guard forces were able to cross the border freely within this area. North Korea took full advantage of this by building 4 communist guard posts near the southern boundary road, while the United Nations Command built none in the north. Note the location of Checkpoint 4 and how it is surrounded on 3 sides by communist checkpoints and isolated from the rest of the joint security area. Soldiers in Checkpoint 3 had limited visibility to soldiers in Checkpoint 4 due to a large poplar tree that grew in this area. So on the 18th of August 1976, the United Nations Command dispatched a 5-man work detail along with a 12-man guard force to conduct a routine tree trimming operation. They were met by 28 North Korean guards. Work proceeded as planned. However, after 15 minutes, the North Korean guards attacked. This ensuing fight would last for only 4 minutes. However, in that time, the JSA's company commander, Captain Arthur Bonifas, and 1st Platoon leader, 1st Lieutenant Mark Barrett, were brutally axed to death. To show you how outnumbered we were that day, I'll now point out 3 JSA soldiers visible in this photograph. First, you can see 1 JSA soldier fighting off 7 North Korean guards. Second, you can see the helmet of Captain Arthur Bonifas as he was brutally axed to death in front of his own vehicle. Third, you can clearly see a North Korean soldier wielding an axe at a JSA soldier. This unprovoked act of violence led to a special series of meetings, and it was decided that the actual MDL should separate the 2 guard forces. Under this new agreement, there were no more acts of violence until the 23rd of November 1984, when a Soviet citizen on a North Korean-sponsored tour dashed across the military demarcation line in an attempt to defect to the free world. He was followed by North Korean guards armed with pistols and rifles in an attempt to kill or capture him. There was approximately 30 North Korean guards located in the northern portion of the sunken garden. The JSA's Quick Reaction Force was immediately alerted and able to outflank and halt the North Korean main body. This ensuing fight would last for approximately 20 minutes. In that time, the KPA had 3 soldiers killed and 5 soldiers wounded, while the United Nations Command had 1 soldier killed and 1 soldier wounded. The Soviet citizen was protected throughout the firefight and evacuated back here to Camp Bonifas. On our trip north today, we might see KPA guards. The red armband signifies that they are military police. Under provisions of the armistice, all armed personnel inside the DMZ must wear these armbands. However, the KPA no longer do so. They might come down to see our tour today. If they do, we ask that you do not communicate with them in any way, verbally or non-verbally. We provide security and assistance for humanitarian aid operations, such as the repatriation of remains to the north and the delivery of humanitarian aid to the north. We also provide security and assistance for visiting dignitaries and heads of state, such as the former President of the United States, George W. Bush, the President of the Republic of Korea, Lee Myung-pak, the Prime Minister of Australia, John Howard, and former Secretaries of State Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice. Just like these dignitaries, you will be guarded by soldiers of this battalion. On your left is the Republic of Korea or ROK soldier. They served 24 months here. On your right is a United States Army infantry soldier. We served 12 months here. Both soldiers must meet above average aptitude standards and must possess both a clean military and civilian record. It is due to all this, the fact that we are the most forwardly deployed unit on the Korean Peninsula, and we stand face to face with our enemies on a daily basis, that the United Nations Command, the Republic of Korea's Army, and the United States Army gave us our motto that we so proudly state. Ladies and gentlemen, we are truly in front of them all.